Hello, and welcome back to the 2018 GRYITH Awards. Why 2018, not 2019? Because the awards are being given to things that were released in 2018. So what sort of stupid, idiotic award show would call itself the 2019 Awards when all of the awards are going to things that weren't released in that year? That would be idiotic. Let's move on. Now, I'm not going to be awarding any awards to music this year because last year it was just a shambles, and also I haven't listened to much music this year. I've mostly been trying to catch up on music because there's just so much of it. There's so much music. Anyway, our first segment of the GRYITH Film and TV Awards is music. Come on, it's not that hard. I said not music. No music, please. Moving on. Look, let's just cut to our sponsor, alright? Let's just cut to the sponsor, okay?
How do you feel? Do you feel unappealing? Well, the chances are that hole in your heart will never truly be filled. You'll have to live your life knowing maybe you're just not good enough, but you can't talk to anyone about it because it would make it all feel real. It would make you weak, and you need to be strong. Well, we can help you. Introducing
Proto Pills.
Our revolutionary proto-technology mixes in huge amounts of protein and fiber along with several other chemicals that when mixed together is sure to get you from this to this. And don't worry about what you've heard. Our new formula is scientifically proven to only cause a 45% chance of addiction and less than 1% chance of causing empathy deficit disorder or inception of a Wendigo curse. So call this number now to begin your 7-day free trial, after which it's only $89.99 a month. You can't get these prices anywhere else.
Oh, welcome back to the GRYITH Awards. Now we're going to be talking about movies. So, what movies came out last year? Which ones are worth a watch? Which ones are any good? Let's find out. Best score? Whilst this was a difficult one because there were a lot of films with great scores like Hereditary, and a bunch of superhero films had great scores. Black Panther, Into the Spider-Verse, great scores. I ended up giving it to Halloween.
Testing 1, 2, 3. We're on.
We're here to investigate a patient that killed 3 innocent teenagers on a Halloween in 1978. He was shot by his own psychiatrist and taken into custody that night, and has spent the last 40 years in captivity. Hello, Michael. I have something you might like to see.
Halloween's score is everything you would hope it would be. John Carpenter's original score for Halloween back in 1970s was so influential on soundtracks and all sorts to this day. And you'd hope that him creating the soundtrack to a modern Halloween film would feel like an evolution of that, and it absolutely does. It's subtle where it needs to be, and it's overt where it needs to be. It's fantastic. Best production design? Look, again, Halloween, fantastic production design. The way they'd made the mask look aged, the way all sorts of things, felt like the original movie, but so much further along in time, was great. Hereditary, some of the visuals in that, amazing. But how could I not give this one to Into the Spider-Verse? I mean, how could I not choose Spider-Verse? Normally production design would go to a live-action film, but I dread to think how long it took perfecting the look of this film. It is beautiful. It has these choppy frame rate changes that really give it a comic book, flip book feel. And it has the chromatic aberration, which I admit sometimes is a little much. It has just the use of color and the use of objects in the frame and repeating objects. Oh, it's beautiful and definitely need to watch. If you haven't seen it, definitely go and watch it, a child or adult. Best visual effects. This is visual effects in a live action movie. Best visual effects has to go to Infinity War for Thanos. Infinity War. I mean, there's so much to say about this film, and sadly this is the only award I could bring myself to give the film. Well, actually there are 2 awards. It's just, my biggest concern going into the film was that it would try and focus on giving character development for all of the heroes, and it would be a mess. But they circumvented that by making the main character of the film the villain, to the point where he even wins at the end, and it's amazing. It's definitely one of the best Marvel films and one of the best superhero films. The superhero genre is just always innovating on itself. It's great. It's a great thing to see. Great performances, especially from Josh Brolin as Thanos. There's some real subtleties in the performance, which I'll get to in a moment in one of the other categories. But I mean, I would say if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But let's be honest, you've probably seen it. I mean, just look at Thanos. Just look at Thanos in this film. I remember seeing this on the big screen. There were times when I wasn't sure if they were using practical effects for Thanos, but I don't think they ever do. I think it's all CG, and it's so impressive. You can see where every single penny of the budget went in this film, and it went into Thanos' scarred, Homer Simpson-looking mug. There's so much subtlety in Josh Brolin's performance that can just be brought out using a motion capture, and they probably, like they do in many video games, enhance or subdue certain, things in the face as he's going, and it's amazing. Best writing, i.e. best screenplay. I always call it best writing though, because sometimes the screenplay as a whole isn't great. For instance, Spider-Verse, the writing was great, but the screenplay as a whole, not so great. The story was a bit What gets best writing now, this year? Sorry to Bother You. Sorry to Bother You is I wouldn't say unique film, but it's not an ununique film. The thing that really grabs me about this film is that it's constantly, from the very first minute, it's getting more and more and more crazy as the film goes on, until it reaches a climax, and then that climax never stops until the credits roll. And it's so much fun, and it's so funny, and it's dark, and it's great, and you need to go and watch it because not enough people have. Best performance. The Golden Globes happened recently, and yeah, it's Rami Malek. He did a fantastic job. During the first few minutes of the film, I wasn't really feeling his performance, but as it went on, I I couldn't stop seeing him as Freddie Mercury. It was, well, I mean, it's probably going to end up being his defining performance, if it's not Mr. Robot. Or, Night at the Museum. Best Animated Movie now. You already know what it's going to be. It's Into the Spider-Verse, obviously. I shouldn't have to say this. Everything's so expressive. The different styles of animation that they manipulate and change just enough to make them all fit in the same space and look natural next to each other. It's just beautiful. It's amazing. Now, Best Director. Now, there were a lot of contenders for this one. Even, I recently saw Aquaman. I like James Wan. He did The Conjuring, which was very well directed, and Conjuring 2, I believe he did. But the award this year goes to Ari Aster for Hereditary. Hereditary was an incredible film, a visual treat. There's so many shots in this that you could take and just make a wallpaper and it would look fantastic. The directing in this was outstanding, and if you haven't seen it yet and you're a fan of horror, definitely go and watch it. Now for my award, the long-awaited award for the worst film of 2018. And this is the year when the worst Marvel film in the cinematic universe was released, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes, it's the worst one. Thor: The Dark World used to be the worst one. Ant-Man and the Wasp, bam, knocked it straight out of the ballpark. This year, the worst film isn't that. There was a film that was worse, and it's Downsizing. Downsizing was by far the worst film I've ever seen in my life, and I go out of my way to watch bad movies. It is a failure on every level. There is no way that anyone making this film had any form of passion for what they were doing. The entire premise is completely forgotten about and ignored. All of the sets are so uninspired and dull and boring. The CG doesn't look good most of the time. Most of the characters are throwaway. God, the performances aren't even good. Not even for people who are always good, like Christoph Waltz. God, it's not even worth watching as a laugh. It is the worst film I've ever seen. And that's saying something. Runner-up for Best Film is a recent one, and it's Black Mirror Bandersnatch. Black Mirror Bandersnatch. Now, I'm not sure if this counts as it came out at the very end of 2018, but Black Mirror Bandersnatch was an incredible film, and it bridges the gap between the telltale style of video games and film. I mean, we all know that Black Mirror is an amazing series. Everyone has seen at least a little bit of Black Mirror, and this is a very unique episode for Black Mirror. Most of them are based in sort of the near future. This is one of the few, because I think there was one more, that was based in the past and explores not a piece of technology as such that has an effect on someone. I mean, it does, but it's more about as a character study of this young man. But the thing that really makes it stand out is the gamification. I would still call this a film and not a game, but you can do otherwise, but you're wrong, because obviously I'm always right. This is one of the best films I've ever seen. This is one of the best films I saw last year. It's not one of the best films I've ever seen. It's got its flaws. You know, the character, it has a character study. The character's not super interesting. Sometimes Netflix forgets some of your choices. But overall, it's well directed. Everything runs very smoothly between the different decisions, and it does a reasonably good job at remembering your choices and leading you towards every conclusion. It's super fun, and I recommend everyone goes and watches it. And finally, best film of 2018. I hope you're ready. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Of course, the best film this year is Spider-Verse. It's won most of the awards in this entire movies segment. It was amazing. Sure, the story was a little uninspired, but the characters, the writing, and obviously the visuals were outstanding. And who else could have done this except for these two writers? I mean, seriously, if you haven't seen this film, what are you doing with your life? You clearly don't have any respect for animation or film or story or just character and acting and the music as well. You know, a couple of the songs didn't quite fit, but oh, it's amazing. Go and watch this film. It's a cinematic orgasm. Now we're moving on to our segment about video games. So, what wins the awards? Well, I think I'll start with the most disappointing award that I'm giving this year. I was trying to figure out who gave the best performance this year. I couldn't choose. I could not choose. Usually, there's one person that stands out, but 2018 had so many fantastic performances, so it is tied for 3. Kratos, Arthur Morgan, and Spider-Man. So yeah, I kind of cheated with this one and gave it to 3 people, but they're all about on the same level, you know? I mean, Spider-Man, he not only feels so natural as Peter Parker, but he re-recorded all of his lines twice, depending on how much he's exerting himself in the game as the player plays as him. Arthur Morgan, he is the cowboy stereotype, yet he gets across so much character and emotion through just his dialogue and his voice. And Kratos, turning this the embodiment of toxic masculinity and making him into a father, a caring figure who wants to change. I'm gonna talk about God of War more later, so I should hold off on it. Next up, the award for Best Gameplay. And the award, surprisingly to me, goes to Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, we kind of saw this coming. It suffers from the missions suffer from the old Rockstar, go place, shoot people, watch cutscene, end. But the open world, it's probably the most free open world since Breath of the Wild. I just have so much fun going hunting and selling things. I just wish I could buy a house and make a life there, you know, as Arthur Morgan. I just have so much fun in the open world of this game, and I think everyone would. And now, best narrative, the best story in a video game. It's God of War. I am a sucker. I am such a sucker for these stories. The Road, The Last of Us, Logan. It's all the same kind of story, and I fall for it every time. I don't know why. I have had no events in my life that have led me to have such a close personal connection with this kind of story. But every time I see one of these kinds of stories, it just resonates. And I think it's resonated with a lot of people. because it's, you know, won so many awards. The narrative in this game, I feel like it must have been one person that wrote it, but considering how many people worked on this game, I can't see how I could have. I mean, I'm going to talk about the game more in a bit, so I won't get into it, but the narrative is amazing. The story of these two guys who get caught up in so much stuff whilst they're just trying to do something so simple. The past catching up with Kratos, even though he's tried for so long to move on. It's just so engrossing and so fun. Next up is Best Sound Design, and originally I was thinking of Spider-Man because of the way that the voices would change, but that's just one thing. And there's another game which just covers all the bases when it comes to sound design. And that's Red Dead Redemption 2. Originally I was going to give this to Spider-Man because of the different voice changing things, but there's so much subtlety in the sound design of this game. The way different guns sound, the way reloading sounds, your feet on different textures, on different materials, punching different things. It's fantastic, and the thing with Red Dead 2 is subtlety. That's the name of the game. Subtlety when it comes to the sound design. But it goes to Red Dead 2. Best score goes to Deltarune, what can I say? Was there ever any doubt? Undertale is one of my favourite soundtracks of all time. Undertale is one of my favourite games of all time. And this, the sequel, does not fail in any way. The soundtrack is incredible. And I loved every single track. Well, except a couple. But, I mean, it's not on the same level as Undertale. But Undertale had 100 tracks in its soundtrack. So this, I'd say, it does pretty well for what it is. Best expansion, of course, it's going to be Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. I mean, what else could I have chosen for this? What else could I have chosen? The Octo expansion just builds so much on what was previously there in Splatoon 2. And it feels like a totally new game. It adds a completely new campaign. There is a good selection of trials where enough of them are easy enough for most people to get through it. But then there's ones of moderate challenge and ones of severe challenge. There's so much fun to try and get your head around, figure out the best way to do it. It's just fun. And as a great man once said, if it's not fun, why bother? The runner-up for Game of the Year, I'm actually going to go ahead and give it to Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, the progression in this is super unfair unless you buy the DLC, but it is such a fun game and there's so much to find and do, and it mixes all sorts of fantastic things. It's not the best game ever, but it's the best Assassin's Creed game that they've released. I didn't think they'd be able to top Origins last year, which shook everything up and was amazing, but they have with Odyssey. So, kudos to you, Ubisoft. You keep surprising me these last few years. I had to choose this one. I am a big fan of Ubisoft. I haven't been a big fan of Assassin's Creed for a long time, but last year, with Assassin's Creed Origins, they totally blew away my expectations. And when this game was announced, I thought, oh no, they've fallen right back into their old habit of just releasing the same game every year. It's just going to be an asset flip with a different story, but no. This game is so much more beautiful. It's got so much more going on. It feels so much bigger, even though I actually think the map's about the same size. It has so many more interesting characters. It's got so many more side missions, so many more crazy things in the open world, and the RPG elements are doubled down on. And the boats return from Assassin's Creed 4. Sure, I would like it if I could have a captain's quarters, but what can you do? It's just... I could not I couldn't not give the award to this, because I respect Ubisoft for trying to be better than they have in the past. And they, in the last 2 years, 3 years, ever since Watch Dogs 2 onwards, they clearly have been trying, really visibly trying to be better and create things for the players. And I really respect that. And this game shows it just as much as any of their others. And finally, Best Game of 2018. Now, you may be wondering what I'm going to say for this one, because it was such a good year. The last few years have been amazing for video games, and there is no way to know what any one person's favourite will have been. But for me, it was God of War. Best game, unsurprisingly, was God of War for me. I mean, this is winning Game of the Year awards all across the board. It has a fantastically perfect mix of gameplay and narrative. The gameplay is so satisfying to play as, and you really feel like an aged, changed version of Kratos who's getting back into the swing of things at first, and then really embracing his past in order to create a better future for his son, his family. Everything about this game leads into that story, that relationship between him and his son, Kratos and Atreus. If you haven't played this game and you have a PS4, you need to. If you're put off because people say it's like Uncharted and has too much cutscene, ignore them. This is better than any Uncharted game. It's so good. Everything about it. I can't think of any flaws with this game.
He doesn't know, does he? About your true nature? Or his own?
The longer you wait, the more damage you do. He will resent you, and you may lose him forever.
You're next! I'll rip your head off!
There are consequences to killing a god!
Why? How do you know? How do you know?
Power. This weapon, any weapon, comes from here. But only when tempered by this. By discipline. The self-control of the one who wields it. Open the door! We need your help!
This is no ordinary illness. The boy's true nature, your true nature, fights within him.
So I'm a man now. Like you?
No. We are not men. We are more than that. The responsibility is far greater.
Can you kill something that big?